Now, the virus is causing economic paralysis. We're aware of just how deep and how dark that's becoming. The disruption is coming into focus. Take a look as we go around the world, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Going west to east, the United States, the restrictions are now in place until April the 30th, but the president is hoping for a recovery by June the 1st. In the United Kingdom, the NHS, there is the possibility of a 6-month lockdown, and if things get going too soon, there is the risk of a second wave over the summer. Hong Kong is returning to isolation policies, most worryingly, because there is a crop of new cases, and the situation in Hong Kong is arguably getting worse. Meanwhile, in China, it's starting to open up, lifting restrictions on Wuhan on April the 8th, but there again, that is still being done very slowly. Now, it begs the question, why is Wall Street still rising so sharply? You saw last week the best gains since 1933 and a 20% move that took the market out of a bear market, technically, barely before it had been in. This begs the question to Mark Zandi, the chief economist at Moody's Analytics, who joins me from Westchester in Pennsylvania. First, Mark, as everybody's asking, the president deciding to extend the social guidelines, social distancing guidelines, until the end of April, the effect that has on the economy, I'm guessing that in your economic projections, you already had those guidelines and distancing in probably almost to summer.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think investors today may be cheered by the fact that the president is being more cautious and not trying to reopen things, because if he did, that's a pretty big gamble, likely lose the gamble and make more people sick and hurt the economy even more. So I think investors are all in on let's make sure that we're beyond this thing before we really start to reopen. And in our projections for the economy, we aren't anticipating that things really start to get going until probably July of August or August this year. And it could be longer, obviously, depending on the trajectory of the virus.
Because we also don't really understand what will happen once things get going again. Yes, you can restart the US and the global economy, but different countries are at different points. For example, Africa is far behind in terms of where it is. Even some parts of Southeast Asia are. So it's very hard to do a global projection over the economic situation for the rest of the year, surely.
Yeah, great point. And, you know, even when the virus passes and we feel comfortable enough to start reopening businesses, I don't think people are going to feel comfortable about traveling. I don't think business people are going to be comfortable about doing trading, investing, expanding aggressively until there's some type of medical solution, until there's a vaccine or a medical treatment that we feel is going to work. So I think even after we're past the shock of all of this and all the near-term economic damage, it's going to be a slog for a while until we nail this thing down medically.
Goldman Sachs says the market hasn't hit bottom. It might be bouncing along, but they say until there is the certainty, the risk of falls remains high. There are those investors who thought that that week of March the 18th was the bottom. It's an impossible task and a fool's errand to try and tack to the bottom. But where do you think we are?
I don't know. This feels like a process to me. We got a ways to go. I mean, I'm reminded of the financial crisis. There were, times during the crisis. I mean, that was a period of a year and a half, 2 years. There were periods all along where we felt, oh, maybe the coast is clear and things are going to be fine and okay. And of course, we went right back into the soup. And this kind of sort of feels like that to me. I mean, it's hard to make an intelligent investment here, given all of the uncertainties. So the one thing we can count on, Richard, though, is a lot of volatility, a lot of days like this where we're up, and a lot of days when we see a lot of red on our screen. So I think that's the one thing we can't predict with a high degree of certainty.